Yo and hello, everybody. This is Hobby Think Tank, and today you get the two mics. I'm Mike. That's Mike.
Mike and Mike in the evening.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome to Hobby Think Tank.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Is this your first time on the show, or
Second, I think. I think I was on one other time. Yeah.
come on? This is the favorite thing you get to do. Come on, other than maybe Attic Fine Friday, but
Attic Fine Friday is, yeah, that's
pretty
the
epic.
best.
But this, you get to talk to your friends.
Yep.
So what's wrong with that? Does the room look different now that you've been here? Like, do you look at it differently?
It's interesting. I meant to mention this when I was in the room. I always thought that the door to your room was directly behind you, but it's actually behind you and to your left.
Yeah, it is. Most people think it looks smaller in real life than on video.
I guess it is small, but I think you had talked about how small it was so many times that I was just prepared for it.
Okay. Yeah, for those that don't know, Mike came over a few weeks ago and he was in town working, and we had a great time hanging out, didn't we?
We sure did. Just card by card, looking through that entire amazing collection.
You saw but a
Well, yeah,
sliver.
not the entire thing, but yeah.
But a sliver, and you were here for like 3.5 hours. It actually got me thinking, like, maybe I have too much crap. If I can't show it in one sitting, maybe that's a problem.
Yeah, something to think about.
But that's not what we're going to talk about tonight on Hobby Think Tank. But there's been what I do want to talk to you about tonight, Mike, is this. It feels like there's this undercurrent in the hobby that the hobby's dying. The hobby's, I don't know, imploding. People are leaving, whatever, right? Whatever narrative people want to spin. Have you heard that? Is my first question. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I get the comment all the time. This is what's killing the hobby. This is why the hobby is dead. This is why the hobby's dying. Comments on my channel almost every day. It could be from things happening with PSA to, an error card, or there really anything could be what's killing the hobby. And I don't think the hobby's dying. It's such a weird thing to say. Maybe it's killing somebody's joy for the hobby, but it's certainly the hobby is not dying out. Look at card show attendance right now. I'm getting outbid on items on eBay that should be mine based on what I'm bidding on them. And I'm thinking, I've got this. This is nothing. And my super bid is getting crushed.
Yeah. Yeah. The empirical evidence that we're seeing, like the truth, is I think the hobby's only growing. Um, so that's your evidence. You're getting outbid, show attendance. Can you give some examples of shows that you've heard about that have been widely attended?
Yeah, if you go to, I don't know any show names off the top of my head, but if you go to just search for card shows and look at the most recent videos, you can see people talking in card shows about how high the attendance is and how much people are spending. It's
Yeah.
huge right now.
Yeah, a few weeks ago we had Culture Collision, I think, in Atlanta, right? And Jeff Wilson, through his Cards HQ, did a trade night, and that looked packed, absolutely packed with people. And it's weird. I guess you have to first define what a healthy hobby is. Like, what defines that? And it can't be monetary, or it can't be only monetary in terms of prices are going up. The hobby's hot. Does that, to me, that can't be the only thing that defines what makes the hobby popular.
Or, well, you used the word healthy, and I would say that the hobby wasn't very healthy in 2020, 21, into early 22, because people didn't really know what they were doing. They were just spending money wildly, thinking it was going to pay off in a month. And for a while it did, but it wasn't a hobby for most people.
And those of us that have been in it a while, because you and I have, you came back around, right before that, right? Or during that.
Yeah, late 2020.
And so we have these two different perspectives. I knew that was a fleeting thing. Absolutely, this isn't going to last. I didn't know time frame or any of that. I wasn't that prophetic, but you know, it wasn't surprising when prices kind of came back to earth. Does that, I think that's when people use the hobby is dying, line, is because prices have come down, right?
Yep. Prices have
And
come down. I think there was also a lull between the national and, say, January, where card show attendance was down. Prices, values went down pretty precipitously for a while. And I just think it's kind of cyclical.
yeah,
Fall, especially once baseball playoffs start, things slow down.
yeah, it's a natural cycle that the hobby goes through annually, right? And the people that didn't know that that cycle existed may have been surprised about it. And were there people that came in 2020 that left the hobby? Undoubtedly, I'm sure there are. Are there people that maybe overspent and kind of got a little ahead of their skis in terms of prospecting, or maybe spending more than they had, and have now had to cut back and or divest themselves of some of their collection? Yes, I think, but that's also part of the natural cycle of anything, to me. And so, what if I was to ask you, Mike? You heard me use the word healthy hobby. How would you define a healthy hobby?
I think a more predictable market where if I know a lot of people hate comps, but if a card sells pretty consistently for $100, then that card you can rely on selling for $100. People buying and selling, uh, I would say fewer scams. I think a lot of the scams, a lot of the things that are out there right now, or were more so during the pandemic, during the boom time, were because there was so much money being pumped into and out of the system, the market. So I think fewer scams would be an important part of a healthy hobby. People collecting and enjoying it. Have seen Dustin. I haven't watched any of Dustin's videos this week. I've been really busy, but he's talking about people. Well, I saw one headline was, "What are you doing here?" And another one was like, "Is anybody still enjoying the hobby?" And I think he's talking to a certain, I assume, I haven't watched it. He's talking to a certain subset of people who are upset that they're not making a lot of money instantly like they were 2 years ago. Maybe he's not, but that's just my assumption. And that I think that's normal and healthy, that you can't just buy a card and go to the next table down and sell it for a 40% profit anymore.
I totally agree. I think some empirical evidence that I have of what I'm seeing to define is the hobby dying, and my answer, of course, is absolutely not. I agree with you about shows. I mean, the Dallas show, the last Dallas show, I had some friends that were there, both dealers and attendees, all of which universally said it was absolutely packed. And that was a show that I thought was going to be a signal for a slowdown in the hobby. Again, slowdown in the hobby and declining prices, two very different things. I think it's very important to distinguish that. In fact, I would argue that declining prices is good for the hobby. And people are going to think that's blasphemous, but the reality is, if you're going to collect and be in this for a long time, no one wants to buy something today and have it be worth half as much the next day. They're going to get frustrated very quickly, or in short order, not necessarily the next day, but you get my point. You don't want to put your money, hard-earned money, into something and be massively disappointed some point down the road. It doesn't mean it happens to all of us, right? None of us have always bought cards for super great deals and end up uh, on the profit side of things on paper, so to speak. But I think you're going to weed out those people, and I think that's happened. The flippers, the quick buck kind of folks, those are getting weeded out. They might be the just loud voices, screaming how the hobby's dying and this is a stupid thing and all this, that the rhetoric that I hear. Another empirical piece of evidence about the hobby being very healthy is the never ending annual enthusiasm over Top Series 1. And I genuinely find humor in how excited people get about base tops being released. Um, it cracks me up every year. And I'm like, guys, it's just Series 1. Like, you can buy it for the next 6 months, no problem. It's not going anywhere, and yet people are excited. I do like the design this year, actually.
I love
Uh,
the design.
I bought a couple of blaster boxes for giggles and enjoyed opening them, and uh, it, I did it because I wanted them, right? I wanted to open the cards and to see the design up close and enjoy it.
You can
Uh,
also wait a year because Series 1 from 2023 right now at Walmart is $10 off for a
right,
blaster. So it was 25.
1597.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can wait and get it a lot cheaper, which makes it much more appealing to me and to a lot of other people who don't think $25 is the right price for a blaster.
And that used, for a period of time, right? You couldn't even get wax off the shelf at Walmart or Target.
That's
And
another
now
sign.
it's readily available. You go to my Walmart out where I go to Walmart. Um, you can buy whatever you want. It's all there. Everything that's in retail is there, from all the way from Series 1 2023, like you said, to now. And you can buy all of it that you want, no problem. And if you buy it all, and next week there will be more on the shelf. And to me, I think overproduction is a concern for people, that will kill the hobby. Um, Again, this hobby is bigger than just new releases, right? It's certainly a big part of it, but the secondary market is what I think drives the hobby's sustainability and longevity. Because once a card is sold at the initial point of sale, now it's how many times will that card change hands over its lifetime, right? You think about vintage cards, they were sold in 1960 or 1958 or whatever year. Uh, those have a market that is never ending, really. People think, oh, these kids aren't going to like vintage. Well, they thought that when we were kids, that, oh, vintage is going to die off because I never saw Mickey Mantle play. And yet I want to own every Mickey Mantle card. So there you go. I'm a case of not being true.
Look at all the young people collecting pre-war cards.
Yeah,
They never saw Walter Johnson play.
right. I just hope that they take the time to learn actually who Walter Johnson was and what he meant to the game. There's some concern on my part that kids are buying it just because it's expensive and not because of who the player was or his impact on the sport. But that comes in time. You can't learn everything instantly. That takes time, and you grow. I think the appreciation can grow with these young kids as they mature and grow up to learn about that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, the price is coming down. I think to your point, you had started talking about making it more appealing to the everyman. I think for a while, a lot of people wanted to buy cards and just couldn't afford it. And now you look, I think Walmart just did a 3-for-1 stock split last week, maybe. And they talked about they wanted to bring the price of their stock down to make it more appealing to buy. And that's kind of what's happening in the hobby right now, where cards are more affordable and maybe young fathers with their young children, young mothers with their young children are actually able to stop and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to buy these cards. So it's for me, it's an exciting time. Singles are cheaper, even though I'm getting outbid on some of the bigger items. That's to be expected. They're big and they're semi rare.
So I also think there's empirical evidence in that Fanatics is not, I think they're printing a lot. I think, but so far, a lot still to be determined, no question. But so far, Fanatics is navigating the hobby, I think, pretty smartly. You know, I've been on both sides of this. I've had periods where I thought Fanatics was going to doom us all. I've thought Fanatics is okay with okay. But I've really landed earlier on before Fanatics really took over tops and really started making decisions that, let's take a wait and see attitude on this. And so far, that seems to be a positive thing for the hobby, that Fanatics wants to grow the hobby. And you had Rip Night recently, right? And all the shops, all the video I saw on YouTube from people going to Rip Nights, it was crazy, bedlam, like people buying lots of stuff and having fun.
Well, they are putting a lot of money into marketing their product. I wish they would put some more money into quality assurance of their product. But yeah, they do. They want to grow because they want to make more money. Um, and they're bringing in Tom Brady and all kinds of big time people, celebrities. It's just something that Topps was never able or willing to do before.
Yeah. Where do you think, in terms of where we are in grading, are we at a healthy spot in the grading market, in the grading world?
Well, it's certainly healthier. I think PSA is doing a lot of $15 per card specials, which is good. Their their turnaround time is getting better. It's still a little too slow, but I also think, and I wonder if they've just decided that why do we need to speed up? It costs money for us to speed up our turnaround time, and it's obviously tolerable to the collectors, to the people who are grading their cards, to take 60 days, 90 days, whatever the time frame is. So it might be just a calculated choice by them right now. I'd love to see them speed that up, and inevitably they probably will, to need to compete with SGC. If SGC continues to, I've seen SGC grading go up on sports. PSA's sports, I think, is holding pretty steady, and there a lot of TCG stuff with PSA, if I remember correctly. Somebody will surely
That,
correct me in the comments.
I think you're right.
Um, and SGC is turning, I think their turnaround time has actually gone up a smidge, but they're turning around cards super fast, taking a little bit of that market share, at least in the sports segment, away. So I think grading is getting better. I do a very small amount of grading myself. I would love to see a competitor to PSA for autograph grading that's not Beckett.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think it should be Mike and Mike autograph
Yeah,
authentication,
sounds great.
and we'll just yeah, everything's good, like blanket authenticity. That's what
Perfect.
we promise.
Yep, we will authenticate your autograph no matter what.
That's right. You could sign it yourself, Babe Ruth. Done. Good. Uh, I think the grading landscape is kind of right where it's going to be for a while. I think we've settled into a price point. First of all, I think if you got to think about, if either of the two things change, which people really care about, which is how much does it cost and how long does it take to get my cards back? If they either one of those changes right now, if you lowered the price, they'd get too many cards, and it would delay processing, right? It would take longer to get your cards back. If they increase price, you probably get fewer cards and could accelerate the timetable. Like you said, I think it's tolerable right now. It's not ideal. SGC has a much better timetable, but they're also grading, you know, 4,000 cards a week, and PSA is grading 400,000 cards a week or whatever it is. It's such a huge discrepancy in number of cards. I think PSA will do some things, i.e., yes, it costs money, but if they can open additional facilities, have regional facilities around the country, to increase their pool of potential employees, and go to some different areas and geographically streamline some things. Um, that would be an interesting way to handle that. Would they have to then offer specials to fill up the capacity of those places? Maybe. Obviously they know their metrics better than we do. We don't get to look at their financials. They're a private company now, so we really don't get to look at financials. But I think they've hit a good equilibrium right now, and I don't foresee them again. If we see their prices go down, that means the demand for grading has gone down, and that's not healthy for the hobby. We want cards to be sent. I do anyway, because I want
Well,
to, you know,
yeah, I think prices can come down a little bit. I think that a reduction in certain cards being graded can be good. Like, you still have people sending in base tops flagship cards. Do those need to be graded, or is that what everybody calls the junk slab mess that we see right now? I don't think there's a junk slab era, but I do think that there are a lot of junk slabs out there. And if people were to stop sending those in, it would it would reduce demand, reduce the price to the consumer, because inevitably PSA and SGC, probably way more PSA, would need to say, okay, we've got fewer cards coming in, let's reduce our costs. But then you're probably going to end up with people sending in those base cards at a reduced cost.
it's just a revolving door, right?
Yeah.
Um, I I have a lot. My beast is full of base tops cards, right? That's what I collect. So I don't have a problem. I think if you want to send a card in for grading, that's your prerogative. Will it be a financially beneficial move? Yes or no? For a lot of these, an Ellie de la Cruz, 2024 top series one card. I don't know. It depends on how good he is, right? So I I think it's people will decide. It's their money. They can, if they want to send a card in for. I got a here's a 84 tops Ted Simmons I'm going to send in. Why would anybody spend $15 to grade a nickel card, or whatever? Well, I want to, so I'm going to.
But you have that expectation that that card is not worth that much money.
I do.
Whereas a lot of the people who are sending them in are expecting it to get a 10, and they're going to turn around and sell it for 4 times what they paid for it, and plus the grading. And you see that a lot, is people trying to dump PSA 8 ultra modern base cards for $25, and they're worth $5, but they just don't want to take a loss on it.
Right. Yeah, that's again, I think they're each people think I'm probably really dumb for doing what I do, sending in a Ted Simmons, for example. And I think modern people are dumb for sending in an Ellie de la Cruz. It's to each their own is the truth of it. And I think we can tell a lot about the health of the hobby as long as these numbers keep churning out for PSA. I think that's a good sign for the health of the hobby. I don't think the hobby's dying. You could say the hobby's dying because your Gavin Lux PSA 10's worth $3, or whatever. But that's not really the hobby dying. He's not a very good player, and his cards. There's plenty of supply of them. There's other factors that people, like you said earlier, way earlier, get pissed off about, but it's not reflective of the entire hobby. It's a microcosm of an issue that someone has, right?
What do you think about the fact that Patrick Mahomes, has won 2 consecutive Super Bowls, and his biggest RPA has declined in value 2 consecutive years?
Well, I think that's more a product of the environment that we came out of than Patrick Mahomes. It's not a
Yeah.
testimony about Patrick Mahomes' legacy that he's building and creating. It's just more, just things couldn't keep going the way they were,
Yep.
regardless of how good Patrick Mahomes performs.
A lot of that big money is out of the hobby now.
Yeah, Acuna, Otani, they're not going to be where they were. Trout's rookies come down from $7,000 at the peak, a PSA 10 of his 2011 update, to you can get them for under $800, under $1,000 now. great time to buy a Trout rookie if you're in the market for one.
I am in the market.
Well, there you go. So those are just examples of probably, again, getting ahead of we were ahead of our skis on a lot of this stuff. A lot of people were spending money that was just nonsensical, and rationality has re-entered the building. Like, that card's probably not worth that. Let's just be honest,
Yep.
And again, more supply, right? As more and more cards get graded, a Trout PSA 10 being at $7,000 will inspire people to go dig through their boxes and send in all the Mike Trouts that they can to potentially have that payday. And again, it's if you get too many of them, then the demand goes away and the prices come down. Everybody has one that wants one, right?
Yep.
Except Junk Wax Hero Mike. He needs one.
That's right.
But any other thoughts before we end this sucker?
Well, I'm hoping to go to a card show very soon. I hope it's a nice big one here in Maine.
We'll have to report on it and see if what our theories are making sense. If you see the reality that we're seeing, that we think we're seeing in all these shows. Yeah. I'm excited about Strongsville. They had to move Strongsville, which is a vintage only show, in April. It used to be in the hotel that's right there. Well, they moved it across the street into the big arena because they've sold so many tickets and they have so many vendors that are dealers that want to be there. So they've had to change the venue on a show that's been going on for 40 years. And oh my gosh, we have a lot of demand for people to come to this show, and therefore we're having to get bigger. The National's only getting bigger, right? It's only growing. And again, any one of these things might or might not tell the complete story, but as you put them all together, as the puzzle becomes more clear, as more pieces get filled in, it tells the picture of, okay, the hobby's pretty healthy. Hobby's in a good place. There are still tons of people that love sports cards, and they're not going away. We've weeded out the riffraff, and what's going to stay, we've gotten rid of the chaff, separated the wheat from the chaff, and the chaff is blown away, and now we're left with the good stuff, the good people that want to be in this hobby long term. And again, it's more than there were before. Everybody that came in didn't stay, but it's a bigger pie now. And
well said.
That's a good thing. So, all right. Love to hear you guys' comments down below. You can talk about which is your favorite Mike. We always like to know who's your favorite. Hint, it's that one is your favorite. I get it. It's okay. And we appreciate you guys watching and listening and giving us some feedback. Tell us what you think. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everybody who's watching.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week. 2 different guys, maybe one of us with another guy, but 2 other people will be on Hobby Think Tank next week. We'll catch you guys soon. Keep collecting.